So one of the most confusing, oftentimes, people get tripped up on when they're sitting for the exam are these intellectual property laws. I have it labeled here. Can I get a what? Can I get an attorney? Can I get a lawyer? Right? So the intellectual property laws come into play whenever you're dealing with something that you created, or maybe you created for a company, and you're trying to protect it in a way that hopefully it can continue to be yours. So there's a few different types here. There's one that's called a trade secret. You may be familiar with this. An example of a trade secret is something maybe like a formula that's used for a soft drink, like a Coke or Pepsi. Maybe it's a program, like in our business, it could be source code, could be trade secret, like some of the code that we all write could be deemed as a trade secret. What about something like the original recipe KFC? That could be as well, right? Usually those are under lock and key somewhere deep in the bowels of an organization. When we talk a little bit about copyright, that's usually, you see that with the C and then a circle around it. So copyright law protects the right of the creator of an original work to control the public distribution, reproduction, display, and adaptation of that original work. So check this out here on page 64 in your book. You may not have known this already, but the categories of work could be pictorial, graphic, musical, dramatic, literary, pantomime, that's right, pantomime, motion pictures, sculptures, sound recordings, and architectural. It protects the expression of the idea. This could also be, like I said before, a programmer's source code. You'll see this coming up a few times here, and we'll talk about that because it's kind of vague where it needs to go. But also this specific rhythms. I know that there's been a lot of people that have claimed that specific beats, like musicians say that specific beats belong to them, or certain ways songs are arranged are belong to them. But if you recall, they have in here this thing called Juarez. Hopefully you've not used that before, but if you're like me, you probably use something like Napster back in the day when you thought it was legal. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not saying that I ever used it, but I had a friend that did. And when we did, it was the BitTorrent or peer-to-peer network that was done. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities that open up there, but really it's stealing, right? Usually you see right before, whether or not you got a DVD, Blu-ray, or even the old VHS, that FBI warning that comes up right before, right? The $250,000 fine for each violation of copyright for those movies that you steal. That's something to think about the next time you do it. Next one here is trademark. So if you take a look over here at the Got Cyber, I went to the U.S. Patents Office and applied for that Got Cyber's trademark, and I was able to get that to try to protect the word, a symbol, a shape, a sound, a color, or a combination of these. So in here, another book, they talk a little bit about Harley Davidson tried to patent the Harley sound. You know how it barely is running? Somehow it magically does not stall, but it's just a constant, is it going to stall? Is it going to stall? Is it going to stall? But it's so loud, so they tried to patent that. And I believe that they were able to, and whenever Honda came out with the Rebel, it was very, very close to the sound of the Harley. So Harley-Davidson put the attorneys in place to go after and say that that may have been a trademark violation. Check it out here. This is probably one that's more important to you guys, or maybe hits home a little bit better here in the middle of 65. One case is a person named Paul Specht, who started a company named Android Data and had his company trademark approved in 2002. Specht's company failed, and although he attempted to sell it and the trademark, he had no buyers. When Google announced that it was going to release the new mobile operating system called the Android, Specht built a new website using his old company's name to try and prove that he was indeed still using this trademark. Specht took Google to court, heaven help him, and asked for $94 million in trademark infringement damages. The court said, so sorry, and ruled in Google's favor and found that Google was in fact not liable for damage. So, yeah. All right, the last one here is a patent. The patent, it usually is given to individuals or companies that get legal ownership that enable them to exclude others from using or copying their invention. They say here that you can't patent things like air, right? But you would think that if you did here, that would be quite lucrative. So you can look on here and check it out. Some of the different examples that they get for various patents. One of them here that you can see is on page 67. They talk about some of the different defendants that had litigations relating to certain types of patents that are out there. So keep that in mind whenever you go out and try to put together your patent for future use right here. But a patent here on 66 is the strongest form of intellectual property protection.